Welcome, everyone. I'm glad to have you here, and I'm very glad to have Tim Stinson with us. It's terrific. I think the topic of our call is what top performers are doing to springboard into 2021. So who better than Tim to be with us and answer that question from Cetera's point of view, from his point of view, and all his experience working with advisors on a regular basis. He's the head of wealth management as well as recruiting at Cetera. So that kind of puts you're a little bit like me, Tim. I feel like I'm in the middle of traffic here at AdvisorHub. I hear a lot of things. You got to be hearing a lot too.
Carry a ton of stuff, Tony, but it's a lot of fun. I still love this profession 30 years later. It doesn't mean that it won't kill you though, right? There's a lot going on in our world.
Well, like we said before, you got the big TV to watch anyway to calm down at the end. So
That's right.
I love this topic because, 2020 was such a dumpster fire, right? And so much went on. And, our business and at Cetera too has done pretty well, even though it was a really, tough time. But when you look back on it, it seemed to have accelerated trends and decelerated trends at the same time, leaving room for opportunity in both sides. You know what I mean? So let's just talk a little bit about some of the trends that were accelerated in 2020, and that will carry forward, that advisors will be using. And specifically, I'm thinking technology. We started to rely on that a lot more. What are you seeing that we're going to carry forward into 2021? What's accelerated on the tech front for advisors?
Well, I think that the great news about what's occurred over the last year is really around adoption of technology. Yeah. I mean, if you think about the landscape of advisors that are out there in the world today, we have heavy adopters of technology. We have slow adopters of technology. All of the slow adopters had to move up the curve and move up the curve very aggressively in order to engage with their clients. So 2020 really became a year of learning how to execute solid practices around digitized engagement. And then I believe 2021 will be an opportunity for us to all put those best practices in place to really accelerate growth. And I know we're going to cover some of that a little bit later on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the first thing that comes to mind is Zoom technology, right? Like we're doing right now. We're coming from your house. There's an element. Look, this is good and this works great because you're in your office and everything else. But if you were eating a Twinkie, you can make mistakes with Zoom too. I think people are figuring that out. But that seems to hold the whole. I mean, for recruiting new clients. I mean, this seems to has a whole bunch of promise, Zoom technology.
Look, I mean, who knew, Tony, that Zoom would become a noun and a verb? Yeah. Right? It's a part of our world. So is Microsoft Teams, all of the digital engagement software that have really facilitated, and quite frankly, it's challenged conventional thinking about how to do business. Do you have to decentralize your office space? Can you reduce office space? Can you get the same productivity without the travel? I don't know about most of you that are out there, but in my world, I hope that I never have to go back to doing 125,000 flight miles every single year. 50? Okay, I'll do 50, but do we really need to do hundreds of thousands of flight miles every year with fantastic interactive engagement tools like the one we're using today?
So did that surprise you? Because it surprised me at the beginning of the year, specifically in your role as head of recruiting, that, look, I know you. I know, somebody wants to come over to Cetera, you're living with them. You're in their house, you're going to the kids' birthday parties, there's a lot of physical, you're in front of them. And that stopped, right? And yet you still recruited. So was that surprising you? It surprised me at the beginning of the year.
If doing a look back to 2020, if you look at once COVID hit, and you look at that, where we were at that point in time versus where we ended the year, it's a tale of two cities, right? And I think that the candidly speaking, advisors are accustomed to engaging in person. They want to look you in the eye. They want to shake your hand. All of their interactions, building their businesses in their networking world, are primarily done face-to-face. That's how we all grew up in this business. So it was fair for them to feel like, boy, you know what? In that March, April timeframe, I can't do a in-person home office visit, meet with executives, meet with key subject matter experts, really dig in and touch and feel bricks and mortars. So there was a slowdown. But fortunately, what happened was advisors, just like everyone else, had to get comfortable engaging, doing business, and making tough decisions with clients, with their consumers, with business partners, with technological improvements. And a part of that was engaging on critical business decisions around how to improve their business status, right? So we started doing virtual home office visits like everybody else, and subsequently had a great fourth quarter. In fact, I would share that December was the best month of the year for us in terms of record-breaking recruiting for us. So we're super excited about engaging with HOVs.
You know, some of that's not going to go away. I think we're going to, because it worked so well, was good. But of course, you're still going to want to have some of the in-person stuff, and some people are going to want that. But what you're talking about is sort of a general notion, and I call it acceptance. There's a notion, there's an acceptance that this is okay. It's not an insult to do this anymore. And that comes from the clients, right? So the clients, if they want to see their grandkids, they do it on Zoom. And if that's okay, and I'm talking to my doctor on Zoom, it's okay for us to talk about finance, you know, on Zoom too. So this level of acceptance is really going to drive us forward, I think.
I agree, Tony. We didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, necessity is the mother of invention. And we're in a scenario where business couldn't get done if you weren't willing to engage in the virtual and digital landscape. And we all know that business is always going to get done one way or another.
What I found interesting was what you had said earlier. You know, I talked about this acceleration and deceleration. You said the same thing, that it's kind of going, some advisors were slow to adapt. What are you seeing out there? Because I totally agree. I think there's an element of folks in our business that are in trouble. And I'm just curious, what are you seeing when you're out there? Are you seeing the folks, is that creating the same dichotomy? In other words, the adapters are really moving forward, doing great business. And are you seeing people being left behind? And if you are, what are you doing to help them if they're in your firm? Or, you know, are you avoiding them totally in another firm? What do you see?
Oh, I think that it's both a challenge and an opportunity for all providers like Cetera that are out there in the marketplace, trying to express upon advisors the importance of efficiency. Yep. And scale and connectivity, utilizing new technologies. All firms struggle with adoption. You can spend $100 million on technology that the advisors want, but then they're slow to change.
Right.
And I think what I'm excited about for the post-COVID world is that people had to take giant leaps forward in order to survive. And so there's a new comfort level with utilizing technology and adopting things and implementing them into your everyday practice. I tell you directly that the advisors that did the best job of inculcating new tech like Zoom and behavioral finance tools, and they outsourced more, had a better experience in 2020, right? They grew more, they made more money, they had more scale, and now they're really ready to have a fantastic 2021, levering off of how they learned to create unique experiences with the technology in 2020.
So what do you do to the guys that are lagging? How do you help bootstrap the folks that are just, you know, slow adapting and having a hard time changing?
It's tough, right? It's tough. Hopefully we get back to some level of the way it used to be in the second half of this year, and people can still do forms and paperwork and use yellow legal pads, all the old school stuff that we grew up in the business doing. But we continue to drive and teach and enable advisors to focus in on this new digital universe. Everything is digitized. Yeah. All right. So, and that creates such great scale and a better client experience. The consumer expects it, by the way. All right. So if you want to send them a whole docket of forms and paperwork that's the size of an old Webster's dictionary, that's a very different experience, and most of them don't expect that anymore. E-sig is a staple in the industry right now.
Yeah. And you know, we talked a little bit about this, you know, before too, but there's an element of back to the future in what I see with prospecting. So when you and I started in this business, I don't know about you. I was, Fifth Avenue, Merrill Lynch, New York City. We used to call all over the country with bond ladders, and you call people, and we were 5 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night in New York. It was only 5 o'clock in California, so you can call people, and you built a book that way. And then cold call lists, you couldn't do that. But it seems that this technology is inviting a little more of that, so that you can talk to somebody from a different state and still feel connected, because you have this Zoom tech. So are you seeing, advisors sort of branch their businesses out in that fashion?
Tony, this new landscape that we're in really is starting to make location irrelevant, right? So I can do the same amount of transactions and the same amount of business and the same amount of service appointments via Zoom or some other multimedia solution that I can do any place else, right? And that creates more efficiency and more scale, and I can deliver high-end advice, guidance to the consumer in the same way, right? And then all of the technology and the planning engines, et cetera, are all sitting out in portals now for you to be able to play there, engage with the client on a collaborative basis, et cetera. It really, I don't have to sit in front of you directly in your living room anymore to be effective.
And I think what's interesting about that is it is back to the future, because we used to be a transactional business. So that when I made those calls, it was just, do you want to buy this? This is how much it costs, and you're done. And then we moved to this, planning concept, where the whole idea was you had to be in the office together, going over a plan. And now, as you said, the borders are gone. So the smart FAs are saying, we could do this anywhere and still have intimacy and still have like you said, the tools online to help you do it.
Yeah, look, this where we are today has been a great litmus test for the value that you actually can convey to your prospective clients and your existing clients. They now either know that you struggle to deliver the same type of engagement as you historically had in person, or they know that that it's exactly the same. In fact, they may even think it's better because you have more frequency of contact, better equipment, and ease of use relative to the way it used to be in the old days. So it's really a tale of two cities right now across the board. But our business can be done and done effectively in the digital world for sure.
So sort of a final thought on the acceleration part. I want to talk about the deceleration part too. But what in your mind is the top thing that Cetera has done to sort of help advisors who help this acceleration in advisors' individual practices? What do you guys get, sending out to the advisors to help them?
Well, I mean, I think it's 3 or 4 fronts, right? So, I mean, you all should know by now that Cetera has this growth mindset, right? So we have a cadre of growth officers that are explicitly focused in on bringing our systems, our technology, our business processing expertise to you to enable you to consume it the way you need to consume it, whether you're an institution, a tax professional, a super OSJ, an enterprise, or just a traditional financial advisor or financial professional. We like to bring you the cooking. And part and parcel of that is delivering scalable tech stacks, wealth management platforms, open architecture integrations with the whole myriad of tools that are out there that we call an ecosystem, if for no better words, around financial, around an advice-centric experience in financial wellness. So trying to cobble all of those things together and bring it to you the way you want to consume it is something that is mission critical at Cetera. And our whole organization is literally focused on doing exactly that. So e-sig, account opening, digital portals, business consulting, legacy solutions for succession, fantastic assessment tools like Riskalyze is one of our newer tools. For those of you that are interested in subscription services, we have a subscription service called Advice Pay for a really different type of revenue model for your clientele. So we're forward thinking, trying to bring all of those things to bear to clients and advisors that want to grow. And at the same time, let's not forget, we have to service, right? So we have a huge emphasis on Net Promoter Score and doubling down to make sure that our infrastructure is in set to be able to do the things that a traditional broker dealer has to be able to do, which is pick up phones and process business.
So we talked about those accelerants. One of the things you mentioned already, and that I think is true, is that 2020 sort of decelerated some trends in real estate. So you had, look, I talk to CEOs all the time, and the one example really sticks out. And a CEO was literally on his desk. He had ready to sign 80,000 square feet on Park Avenue. He's like, nah, no, I'm not doing that now. So that's more like going to be maybe 30,000 if he even signed it. As a matter of fact, I should follow up with the guy, see what he ended up doing. But he was looking more turning it into 30 or 40,000 square feet. So you have this sort of infrastructure, and we were talking before. It's not so bad to do some stuff from home. You don't want to necessarily travel as much yourself, and you can see marketing people, they could share desks. So I wonder what you're doing sort of big picture, real estate, because now we can work via Zoom. But what are you seeing advisors do too? I've also talked to a lot of large RIAs, billion-dollar, several $billion plus, and real estate's one of the biggest expenses that they have. And of course, it's all, you got to work the expenses. And if you're not a $1 billion RIA, but say you're doing $1 million, the real estate's a big chunk of it. And we wanted to set our offices up so we didn't look like Bernie Madoff, right? So we wanted to have a nice, solid looking place to do business, so advisors, clients could come and they'd feel good about it. But today, with all the Zoom stuff, people that I'm talking to are not renewing those same big leases. They're being inventive. They're, maybe having a nice meeting room, a nice, reception area, but just have everybody in, trading desks in the back, or I'm only going to show up when I have a meeting. I don't need to be there all day. What are you seeing? Are your guys talking about the same, especially because your business is over a whole bunch of different types of businesses. So I'd be interested to hear what they're thinking.
Tony, COVID in this new digital landscape, a byproduct of it is that it's enabled us to challenge classic assumptions, right? And classic assumptions that we all have to be in the office, that operations have to be completely centralized or totally hub-based, that people have to come in and touch bricks and mortar to feel comfortable to make a business decision about either becoming an employee or becoming an affiliate, right? All of those assumptions have been blown out of the water, and most firms, including Cetera, are taking a step back and saying, okay, how can we think about things differently in the new world? Do we have to have centralization and 100,000 square foot facilities? And by the way, if you want to do that in a socially distanced manner, you actually need 6x the amount of space that you probably already have. So the question becomes, how do you reimagine what's really necessary to support the business infrastructure to deliver high-end service to your clientele, right? And there are so many great tools and technologies out there that like Zoom, but also hoteling systems, et cetera, where you can reduce your space, have people come in 3-4 times a week, have people come in once a month, right? And that'll allow you to reduce your real estate footprint 30-40% and still deliver against the requirements of the business. And by the way, most employees to that end want you to do it. They've become accustomed.
That's a question. What are you seeing more efficiency? Because the other thing I'm hearing is that a lot of their employees are actually more efficient now. They're doing more from home than they were doing before.
So the Zoom fatigue is a real thing. And
Sure.
Zoom fatigue is because we work 15 hours a day. We used to work 12, right? Right. And that included the commute. So I think there is something to be said about productivity at home. And certainly the employees in my group have all spoken loud and clear about the ratio of time that they want in a formal office facility versus being at home. And we're measuring productivity as well. I do believe that we need to keep studying productivity, because right now you can't go anywhere or do anything for the most part. That's right. And I think when that productivity could change when the kids have baseball every day, right? And wrestling and soccer and the theaters are open and restaurants are open, et cetera. Are we still going to have the same level of focus in that normal environment and work from home as large entities and enterprises is still yet to be seen. So we're studying that as well. But there are opportunistic chances for us to really evaluate our real estate footprint, save costs, create a unique experience for the employees, and we're going to move on that.
And the individual RAs, you're seeing them do the same thing in their practices, taking a hard look at it?
Yes, they're looking at it saying, oh my goodness, I have 10,000 square feet, and I have 3 people in the office every single day. And guess what? My business increased $100 million in assets under management. Only 25% of it was from the market. So I actually grew 75% organically and inorganically in an environment where I only had 3 of 50 people in the office, right? That makes you step back as an owner, operator, and say, what am I doing here? Let's think about this a different way. And we see that all day long.
Yeah. Look, I think we're going to find that this year was sort of a seminal year in a lot of ways. And I guess a big question that I have too, I've written about this as well. Is it going to accelerate? Certainly the conversation has accelerated, but is the whole thing going to accelerate or decelerate? And I'm talking about, are we going to have any movement on the race and gender stuff? Certainly there was a lot of talk about it. Like I said, I've written about it. Other people have written about it. Where do you guys see that headed? Is that the kind of thing that, hey, it was great, and then it's going to shift back? Or, have we crossed some sort of, milestone where, hey, look, we're going to continue to have some improvement, here?
Tony, I can tell you that Cetera is all okay on making improvements, not only inside the company, but inside of our profession and inside our broader based community. We have a massive diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging initiative. A great example, we just did scholarships of about $250,000 to classic minority groups at HBCs, or historically Black colleges and universities. We're looking at mentorship programs. We're involved in inroads. For our employees, we're doing unconscious bias training and courageous conversation chats. We have ERGs running. So from the CEO on down to the janitor here at Cetera, there's really a focused initiative around improving our conditions with regards to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which is important to not just our company, but to our P&L, to our board, to our shareholders, and to our community at large.
So here's what's interesting about our business, and what's hard in a lot of ways makes it not translatable, to other businesses, because the bottom job is the best job. You and I have good jobs, but you're better off, as you're better off owning your own book, right? That's the job. That's the key job. It's great to have, put people in positions of running a thing, but the best job, you can pass it on to your kids. You have an unlimited income. You don't have the same hassles. Everyone's trying to help you get your job done. So being an advisor or a broker is the best thing, but it's hard to get started, and it's getting harder and harder and harder to get started. So one of the things is we talk about 2020, 21. I have 2 daughters that are working. They're young. They were like 20. My wife's going to kill me. 23 and 25, but that's how old they are. So I have 4 daughters, by the way. That's why I get confused. The other ones are a little younger. They're in college, but they're now managers. They've been promoted, but it's so hard. They're not in the office. There's no mentoring. This is a tough time. I'm so proud of them. They've done so well. But our business, it's hard to get started, and it's harder. Again, we all talked about this before. When you and I started, you could cold call. You can't cold call today, and sort of what I've written about, and it's sort of, it pulls back into the race and gender thing. But let's just say, people that are first-time college, grads, what kind of network do they have? You go to a big firm, and you're supposed to open $200,000 accounts. I could never have done that. When my dad was a dentist, all my clients were dentists, and they wouldn't give me any real money. They all gave me $10,000 to get started because I didn't know what I was doing. It's hard to start. How can we help people get rolling. I'm not saying you have to have an answer for this today, but this is just, what I think. If we could do that, then we can do an awful lot of improvement on the other end of this thing.
So Tom, it begins with, educating younger folks about what we do as a profession. A lot of them think of us as just salespeople, slinging product, et cetera. They don't understand this concept of comprehensive wealth management and how we actually impact people's lives. I mean, advisors are, in many instances, the first call when there's a problem, a disaster, an opportunity, et cetera. People forget. They forget about that. So it's educating. And then the other thing that I would remind all of our listeners is that we have to remember demographics are real and the world is changing. Right here in the US, I was reading a study the other day, right here in the US, something like 50% of all consumers today in the US are Generation Z.
Yeah.
And the oldest generation, I think it was they were born around 1996. That puts them at 24 years old. So the largest population of consumers today, they don't have all of the money yet, but they will soon with wealth transfer, right? Yeah. And we have to be building tools, technologies, engagement strategies, and hiring people that identify with that group of business and that group of consumers. Otherwise, we're all going to be out of business in 15 years, right?
And that placed the technology. I mean, so finally, I think last year my favorite statistic was, we had 0% growth among Gen Xers in the last, 3 years. 0% growth. But I mean, some of it is they don't have money, but some of it is, like you said, it's coming. But I think the technology is helping us. So I don't think we're going to have that trend again because of the technology. And also, I was also reading the fastest growing middle class segment of the company is minority. So it's like I think they're calling it brown or black skin, but it was minority. And then you also have women who end up controlling a lot of the assets anyway, whether it's generationally or whatever else. So on the very high end side. So while we're making all these changes to our practices, and especially if we're expanding our reach, we ought to be thinking about ways to help people, but also at the same time grow our practices, build our businesses.
Tony, diversity, equity, inclusion is not a binary decision.
No.
Right? It's not. Right. So we can be growing our businesses, hiring a more diverse populace of people, and expanding into markets that we classically haven't served, that may have been underserved, and building strategies and infrastructure to serve the market of tomorrow. Right. I mentioned that Generation Z, 50% of the US consumers, the lion's share of them are classic minority groups. The very first thing they do is go to your website and understand who you are, principles are, and quite frankly, how much diversity that you have inside of your business. So we as professionals have to be compelled to set up our businesses for tomorrow. It's not just where we are right now in 5 years, it's 10 years.
You're totally hitting it, but that's hard. That's been hard for advisors since you and I started in this business. Are you building this because you see, the clientele aging and they have a hard time relating to the next generation? They don't build their teams. They don't add women to their team. They don't have the elements that they need to sort of grow the book. And some of it was, I think initially anyway, no one thought they were going to live this long in this business. I didn't know it was going to be so successful. Now here we are, all of a sudden, I got a real business. And advisors do have to know they have a business. It's a real thing. If you got 100 million in assets, that's no freaking joke. That's a real business. And what's going to happen next? Who's going to inherit and how? And are you building this in perpetuity, or are you building it for today? And I think most advisors need that wake up call that, am I running a business here, or am I making sales calls every day?
Right. Well, if you're running a business, you're thinking about tomorrow, right? If you're running a life of leisure, which, let's be honest, once you arrive, this can be a great lifestyle business. We used to kid around about dying at the desk. How often is that happening for real, right? Because we love what we do, and we have some efficiency, and we have support and infrastructure, so we can do it well into our 80s. right? So, but if you're thinking as an entrepreneur about your business valuation and the equity of that business, how do you pass it down and continue to serve in your community or have a liquidity event? All things that real entrepreneurs need to be thinking about.
And in terms of supporting advisors with that struggle, you guys are Cetera set up. Do you have any specific programs for that, or what do you tell them when they come to you with that? Because it's got to happen every day, right?
Every single day. I mean, we have a fantastic platform called Legacy Builder that is designed to link practices together. That actually has some capital involved in there. So, I mean, if you're an existing advisor in our universe and you're looking to sell or purchase a practice, we're matchmaking.
And that's especially important for advisors who may be coming from different, like a wirehouse or a regional. On the RIA side, that's a big deal, because you know, sometimes you could be really alone out there and you don't know what the value is and you don't have the money to pick up another. I mean, it's a big deal to have some structure like that.
It's probably one of our most valuable soft offerings in an area that we're building out because of interest. And it's real. And let's be honest, our advisors are all getting older. The average age of an advisor is probably over 60 now. And how much longer do you want to do this? Do you want to bring in a junior partner? Where do you find a junior partner, et cetera? And then, quite frankly, you know, we as an organization, you probably saw an announcement in the media. I mean, one of our largest and best relationships in Bar Financial, we became their succession plan for them, right? We acquired that business. They brought that business in-house to Cetera. They still own and operate they operate the business, but we can participate in that succession if you're an enterprise type of firm as well.
Right. Well, that's great stuff. I want to end it on a high note here. We've had everybody on for a little bit. Is there anything I didn't ask you that you wanted to talk about? Did I miss anything?
No, look, I would say that money is in motion out there. Let's not forget that. Money is absolutely in motion, and the things that you do every single day to actually engage the consumer, they matter. So whether it's putting up regional seminars on Zoom, whether it's utilizing unique tools in behavioral finance like Riskalyze that allow you to sort of dislodge assets, money is definitely in motion. I also read an article this morning that suggested that new business applications have skyrocketed year over year for January. In fact, I think the number was 490,000 new business applications were filed in January. That's up 73% over last January. That's pre-COVID. And guess what? Half of that was down in the South. So what are you doing with your business to sort of penetrate something in the South? Things are happening. Those folks need capital. They need lending. They need guidance. They need advice, et cetera. And we all know that the next Zoom is going to come out of one of these new business applications for sure. So people have money and it's in motion. Make sure that you're doing all of the things you need to get your digital presence out there to serve them in a unique manner.
Great. Tim, thank you very much. By the way, that article was not in AdvisorHub. I suggest you don't read anything but AdvisorHub. just keep that going. All right, it was great to see you. Hey, thanks a lot. We'll do this again sometime. I think there was a lot of good information there, and look forward to talking to you again, bud.
Absolutely, Tony. Thanks for the time, and have a great afternoon, everyone.
You too. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
I think we actually got